is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. I'm Kristel Guangco. It's Wednesday, August 9th, 2023, and you're watching Newsline World. We're here to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. First, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. said that the Philippines and China does not have any agreement regarding the BRP grounded Sierra Madre and Ayungin Shoal. In Europe, Ukraine raised concerns about a tent city being built for Wagner forces in Belarus, Poland. On the other hand, continues to reinforce its borders. In Africa, Ethiopia is still under state of emergency since last Friday as clashes between the country's federal army and Fano militia persists. The United States stocks had fallen after credit rating Moody's downgrades U.S. banks. And SMNI received another prestigious recognition for its contribution for nation building at the Philippines Golden Eagle Awards. This and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. insisted that the Philippines does not have an agreement with China on removing the country's ship from Ayungin Shoal. Hannah Jane Sancho files this report.
There is no existing agreement between the Philippines and China to remove BRP Sierra Madre from Ayungin Shoal. This is what President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. stressed on Wednesday, which is contrary to what Beijing said that the Philippine government has promised to remove the said military vessel. Marcos insisted that he was not aware of any such arrangement or agreement that the Philippines will remove from its own territory its ship, referring to the ground BRP Sierra Madre from the disputed waters. The president made the statement following reports that the Chinese government has once again called on the Philippine government to remove its military vessel from the Ayungin Shoal, which is in the Philippines' exclusive economic zone.
I'm not aware of any agreement that the Philippines should remove from its own territory its own ship, the BRP Sierra Madre, from the Ayungin Shoal.
Since 1999, the Philippines has stationed the BRP Sierra Madre in Ayungin with the aim of making it a military outpost in the said contested waters. The chief executive added that if such an agreement exists, then he will overturn it.
And let me go further. If there does exist such an agreement, I rescind that agreement as of now.
For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Hannah Jane Sancho, SMNI News.
A foreign relations expert is proposing a practical response for the Philippines to the recent water cannon incident involving the Chinese Coast Guard in a Philippine vessel in Ayungin Shoal. MJ Mondihar has the details.
The bombing of a Philippine Coast Guard ship by the Chinese Coast Guard at a resupply mission in Ayungin Shoal in the West Philippine Sea has drawn criticisms in Congress. In fact, they have summoned officials from the Chinese embassy to explain.
What if we have already exhausted all efforts? 200 plus na diplomatic protest simula ng panahon ni Pinoy. Saka ilang dosena na note verbale. Nakailang back-channeling na, pati si Trillanes, napasama pa dyan. Pinakalitis niya si dating Pangulong Duterte.
This all stems on the unresolved status of the Spratlys after World War II.
However, according to foreign relations expert Sasrogando Sasot, there is a deep history behind China's claim to the disputed territory. Based on a 1994 study by the University of Maine School of Law, France was the first contender to the Spratlys back in the 1800s. This continued until the 1887 delimitation of the frontier treaty with China. However, in 1939, Japan occupied the Spratlys during the World War II and renamed them the Shinangunto Archipelago. In 1945, Japan left the area at the end of the war.
And of course, Japan, because they were the strongest nations during that time na tayo laman dito sa mga Western colonizers.
In 1956, a Filipino lawyer and businessman named Thomas Cloma claimed some islands in the Spratlys. This marked the birth of the Kalayaan Islands. According to Murphy's book, the Philippines based its original claim to the Spratlys on this. In 1978, former President Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr. formally declared 8 islands in the Spratlys known as the Kalayaan Group of Islands under Presidential Decree 1596. In 1988, China began exercising power in the Spratlys. Vietnam also made claims during the same time involving the Paracel Islands. Several nations claimed parts of the disputed territory as part of their archipelagos. According to Sasot, the Philippines faced challenges in its 2016 arbitration case against China over the West Philippine Sea issue.
The Philippines kasi would claim na yung mga sinilista nila doon is part of the Kalayaan Island Group, ma-resolve kasi yung kaso eh. Okay? Pwede resolve. Kasi nga it will become a territory, it would reveal the true essence of the dispute, which is a territorial dispute, and it is not under the jurisdiction of the arbitration court. So what they did is that they actually discarded PD 5096 and seemingly argued that UNCLOS actually kind of superseded PD 5096 of Marcos. So now, ang pinaglalaban natin is sovereign rights over the shoal. Ang pinaglalaban ng Vietnam and China, they have sovereignty over the shoal because it is part of the archipelago na kiniklaim nila. So I hope that people realize the difference between the two and which one has a higher claim. It's gonna be Vietnam and China. Kasi nga, they don't really care, whether the Ayungin Shoal is a low tide elevation.
Regarding the water cannon incident, Sasot said that China and other countries also employ such tactics. She said it was better that China used water rather than actual bullets and bombs to assert its claims in the disputed territory. She also called on the Philippine Coast Guard and those who want to challenge China, including the United States, to equip their coast guards with water cannons as well.
Gusto mo ngayon, you would like to counter water with U.S. military might. Naku, mapuputokan ka dyan. It's like using a hammer in order to kill a fly. So that is not a proportional response, no? Well, I'm not saying that the Philippines would just need to accept this. Well, kung gusto nyo lumaban, then equip our coast guards with water cannons as well. Magbugahan sila dyan ng water cannon, just like what Japanese coast guards and coast guards of Taiwan do to each other.
If pushed through, the investigation will cover not only the West Philippine Sea issue, but also the reclamation issue at the Manila Bay. For Ganamabul of Philippines, MJ Mondihar, SMNI News.
In other news, a powerful blast hits grain silos near a port in western Turkey. The explosion was so powerful that it also injured several people and damaged more than a dozen silos. Jane Cognita reports.
At least 12 people were injured after a powerful explosion hit grain silos near Derince Port, Turkey on Monday. Derince Mayor Zetcha Aygun told Turkish media that the blast originated at a block of government-owned grain silos and felt like a violent earthquake. Kocaeli Governor Seher Yavuz attributed the cause of the blast to dust compression during the transfer of wheat from ships in Turkish Grain Board or TMO silos. Turkish TMO General Manager Ahmet Goldal said the blast damaged 13 out of 16 silo wells and outbuildings. The province of Kocaeli Derince is one of the few seaports in Turkey that is fully operated by the government. Defense is a transportation hub for grain, and it received regular shipments from Ukraine until the Black Sea grain deal expired last month after Russia refused to extend it. Turkish authorities continue to investigate the incident. Reporting, this has been Jane Cognita, SMNI News.
Russian forces claim to have shot down Ukrainian drones that were going to Moscow. Meanwhile, a powerful explosion left 25 people injured at a factory in a town outside of Moscow. Let's find out more with Carlo De La Peña's report.
In the latest surge of drone attacks on Moscow, the Defense Ministry on Wednesday reported that the nation's air defense systems were able to neutralize 2 drones that were headed to the capital, Moscow. At night, an attempt by the Kyiv regime to carry out a terrorist attack by drones was thwarted over Moscow region. According to the reports, the unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, were shot down to the south of the capital, while another was destroyed over the M1 highway. In a video posted on Telegram, a security footage reportedly shows the moment one of the drones was taken down, wherein a flash was seen with the sound of an explosion was heard. It can be noted that this is not the first reported incident of a drone attack, and such UAVs have been used throughout the Russia-Ukraine conflict by both sides. Meanwhile, a powerful blast rocked the Zagorsk optical mechanical plant in the town of Zygiev Posad outside of Moscow, prompting people in the facility to evacuate. Reports say the optical equipment factory designs and produces optical and electronic equipment for military purposes, healthcare, and manufacturing. Russia's Ministry of Emergency Situations said 25 people have been injured in the blast. Of this number, 2 have been hospitalized. Russian media reports citing witnesses said that the explosion shattered windows in nearby buildings, with ceilings collapsing in office buildings. Reporting, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Wagner forces are allegedly building a tent city in Belarus near the nation's border with Ukraine. Meanwhile, Poland has deployed more troops on its border with Belarus. Jane Cunita is back for her report.
In the latest development of Yevgeny Prigozhin's so-called exile in Belarus, together with his Wagner mercenaries, the paramilitary is reportedly building a tent city to house around 1,000 of their forces at the Zyabrovka airfield, an area located just 15 miles from the border with Ukraine. The report was issued by the Ukrainian National Resistance Center, which claimed that the Wagner tent city will allegedly be used for subversive activities. It can be noted that Wagner has a history of conducting activities provocatively close to the borders of other countries, and that Wagner has been conducting military training with Belarusian forces since being sent to the country after their short-lived mutiny in Russia. Meanwhile, Poland has reinforced its border with Russian ally Belarus as tensions continue to escalate. In the latest move of the Polish military, another 1,000 soldiers will be redeployed to the Polish-Belarusian frontier. Currently, there are about 2,000 troops in the area. Warsaw said that the redeployment is in response to the surging migration and the presence of operatives working for Wagner. According to the data gathered, about 19,000 people have attempted to illegally cross the Belarusian border this year, compared to 16,000 in 2022. The move comes amid rising tensions between Belarus and Poland. In late July, Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki accused Belarus of the arrival of more than 100 Wagner forces near the border, saying that the move is undoubtedly a step towards an upcoming hybrid attack on Polish territory. However, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko slammed Morawiecki, saying that Poland has gone mad over rumors regarding Wagner. He also insisted that there was no threat and that his previous remarks about Wagner wanting to visit Poland were just a joke, and that he was only pointing out that Poland actively supplied weaponry to the Ukrainian military, which killed thousands of Wagner fighters in Bakhmut. Reporting, this has been Jane Cunita, SMNI News.
South Korea will join the working group that will monitor in implementing Ukraine's peace formula. Sela Yin has the details.
South Korea will join a working group that aims to implement a peace plan of Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. The decision was released during Cho Tae-syung, the country's national security advisor, was in Saudi Arabia last weekend to attend multinational peace talks regarding Ukraine. Present in the meeting are the national security advisors from 45 countries, most of which expressed their dedication to ending the war in Ukraine and to quickly bring back peace to the nation. Zelensky's peace plan, or better known as peace formula, consists of 10 points to push as radiation and nuclear safety, food security, energy security, and freedom for every detained deportee. According to the official, establishing a working group for the implementation of the peace formula has been discussed in the meeting in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, wherein Russia was not invited. Participants in the meeting also agreed to continue such talks in the future, also to execute the peace formula summit by Zelensky. To recall, the South Korean government promised to give security packages and humanitarian and reconstruction assistance to the country that has been greatly affected by the war. South Korea also hopes that by joining the working group, businesses will also have an opportunity to be involved in big projects for Ukraine's restoration. Seoul, Isabela, SMNI News, South Korea.
In other news, Japan is seeking a higher defense budget for the next fiscal year, in line with the country's new security strategy that will eventually double the annual defense outlays of the military. Natsumi Kojima tells us more.
Japan's defense ministry will seek a 7 trillion yen or $49 billion budget for the fiscal year of 2024. If approved, the defense spending plan for the year by April will surpass the current 6.8 trillion yen budget. This plan is mostly being pushed by the ongoing security threats imposed by China, Russia, and North Korea. Local reports say the said budget request will be made later in this August. This will speed up the introduction of homemade long-range missiles, as Japan promised to gain the ability to strike enemy territory or counter-strike capabilities. Japan aims to enhance the range of the ground self-defense forces Type 12 surface to ship guided missiles by tenfold, extending from 100 km to 1,000 km, in addition to make it develop high-speed glide weapons to defend the country's southwestern remote islands. In addition, the ministry also plans to build 2 destroyers equipped with US-developed Aegis missile interceptor system. The Aegis ships are expected to arrive in fiscal 2028 as an alternative to a council to deploy 2 land-based Aegis ashore missile defense batteries in Japan. The current fiscal year marked the start of 5 years intended to fundamentally revamp the country's defense posture by spending a total of 43 trillion yen. SMNI News, Japan.
Now we're back for more update. The fighting between Ethiopia's federal army and the Fano militia is continuing in the Amhara region. Several people have been killed during the clashes. The Ethiopian government on Friday declared a state of emergency in Amhara aimed at restoring law and order there. CGTN has the latest from Addis Ababa.
Reports suggest heavy fighting between the army and militia men known as Fano is taking place in several parts of the Amhara region. Many people have been killed, although there is no exact death toll that has been made public. Following the government's declaration of a state of emergency in the region, a command post is overseeing operations there.
Inciting any form of uprising in the region, delivering speech fueling insecurity, encouraging and spreading violence in any form in the region is forbidden. Moreover, providing financial, information, material and moral support directly or indirectly to armed men is prohibited.
Several people have been arrested in the region as special military operations continue amid a strict curfew. Flights and most road transport activities to and from the region have been halted since last week, making life difficult for many locals.
People suspected of connections to the current violence in the Amhara region, those who give missions and those who take part in different forms are being put under custody. The government will share more information with the public regarding further measures which will be taken in the future.
The Fano militia leaders say the government has been unlawfully interfering in the affairs of the region, which resulted in, quote, the undermining of Amharas. The government denies such accusations and say the militiamen intend to topple the constitutional order and are criminals.
The government's too much patience and preferences to give peaceful alternatives a chance has been taken for granted and has been taken as the weakness of the government. Some even started believing the looting groups are stronger than the constitutional order. This led to an increase in plundering and killings. The armed group murdered key leaders of the region, targeting political and security officials. Over the past 2 months alone, several police commissioners, security personnel and party leaders in the Amhara region have been killed by the armed militia.
Social media activists and media affiliated with the militia claim the gunmen have taken control of a few cities in the region. Reports suggest the region's capital, Bahadar, and the historic Gonda city are witnessing intense clashes. Many within the country and from across the world are already making calls for the conflict to be peacefully resolved. Isabela believes it has given ample opportunities for the militia to put down arms and return to finding political solutions for any differences. Others fear this could cause a full-fledged war in the country again. Grup Janasi Etienne, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
The conflict in Sudan continues as violent clashes erupted anew in the capital city of Khartoum. Melchizedek Cadiz has the details.
Assalamu alaikum. The Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces or RSF engaged in heavy fighting this week with more than 4 million people displaced in the ongoing crisis. The warring factions continue to exchange fire in the capital Khartoum and surrounding areas. The latest clashes have killed more than 20 civilians, while electricity and communications were cut in the region for several hours. Fierce fighting erupted on Monday after the Sudanese army launched air attacks and heavy artillery in an attempt to take control of a bridge across the River Nile used by the rapid support forces to move reinforcements and weapons. While the war showing no signs of abating, a spokesperson from the UN Refugee Agency warned the fighting has triggered outbreaks of disease and an increase in malnutrition. Moreover, 14 million children are in dire need of humanitarian support, according to the United Nations Children's Agency. The latest data from the Sudanese Health Ministry showed the deadly clash resulted in over 3,000 deaths and more than 6,000 injuries since it started in April 15th. Barakallahu fikum jami'an, kan hada Melchizedek Cadiz akhbar SMNI, Kuwait.
In other news, experts warned that the continuous military buildup in the Gulf region could trigger a dangerous confrontation with Iran. Jonathan Acobo reports.
Marhaba. Several U.S.-based analysts shared their insights on the efforts done by Washington to increase its military presence in the region and how it could escalate tensions between the U.S. and Iran. The Pentagon previously announced to deploy thousands of U.S. troops in the Gulf region to help protect shipping lanes being seized by Iran, including those passing by in the Strait of Hormuz. As of Sunday, more than 3,000 U.S. sailors and Marines have arrived in the Red Sea aboard 2 warships. In response to the recent actions by the United States, an angry Iran vowed to equip its Revolutionary Guard Navy with drones and missiles. Tehran has also accused Washington of defending smuggling activity in the Gulf region. A senior fellow at the Center for International Policy think tank based in Washington, D.C., warned the possibility of mutual escalation between the U.S. and Iran will be very dangerous. Meanwhile, the policy director at the National Iranian-American Council, also based in Washington, said that increasing U.S. military presence in the Gulf may be viewed by Tehran as a way for Washington to seize Iranian tankers. The Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has also criticized the presence of the U.S. military in the Middle East as an approach that undermines regional stability and security. Tajiblak al-Mazimin Tatiti at Garim Dabay Kanala Jothan Kobazmay News, Nadida Bremertz.
U.S. Secretary of State Victoria Nuland issued a stern warning of appropriate action from the United States if the military junta in Niger, which initiated the coup there, does not restore order. However, meeting with the junta officials did not achieve any breakthrough, as stated by Nuland. Angel Pastor has the details.
U.S. Department of State spokesperson Matthew Miller confirmed that U.S. Acting Secretary of State Victoria Nuland met with the leaders of the junta in Niger in recent days. This trip by Nuland was conducted discreetly until she left the U.S. According to Miller, it appears that Nuland warned the junta leaders of possible actions that the United States would take if they do not comply. Despite this, Nuland's efforts didn't seem to be successful, as it remains unclear whether the junta leaders will follow the solution presented to them.
Acting Secretary Nuland met yesterday with leaders of the junta and made clear that there was a diplomatic path forward for them if they would choose a return to constitutional order. She also made clear that there would be consequences if they didn't, that there are hundreds of millions of dollars of U.S. assistance at stake, As she said last night in the call she had with the press, they were very difficult conversations. She didn't achieve any breakthroughs, and it's not at all clear that they will choose the diplomatic path forward. And I do want to emphasize that she also met with civil society leaders of NGOs while she was on the ground yesterday.
The junta leaders also reportedly refused to meet with Nuland regarding General Abdurrahman Tiani, the new leader of Niger from the junta. Meanwhile, Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin welcomed the recent warning of Nuland in Niger, advising them never to emulate the country that engaged with Russia's paramilitary group. According to Prigozhin, they are open to assisting Niger and to call them anytime if they need their help.
Я горжусь парнями из ЧВК «Вагнер». Только о мысли одних ИГИЛ и Аль-Каида становятся маленькими послушными шелковыми мальчиками. А США признает правительство, которое еще вчера не признавало, лишь бы не встретить в стране ЧВК «Вагнер». Это радует госпожа Ноланд. Мы всегда находимся на стороне добра, на стороне справедливости и на стороне тех, кто борется за суверенитет и за права своего народа. Звоните в любой момент.
To recall, Nuland earned the nickname Maidan midwife from Russia after traveling to Kyiv, Ukraine for the Maidan coup in 2014. Reporting this has been Angel Pastor, SMNI News.
The West African Regional Bloc, ECOWAS, will hold an emergency summit on Thursday to address the military takeover in Niger. The military junta has cited persistent insecurity as its main justification for seizing power. Our correspondent CGTN's Ajek Mangut will give us the details.
Military takeovers of governments have been commonplace in West Africa for decades. Political analysts say the coups have been caused by a multitude of factors.
There is, flawed elections all across Africa. We just had an election in Sierra Leone that is as disputed as that of Nigeria. Look at what is going on in Kenya. So, flawed election is one of those variables. Economic, hardship also is one of them. Corruption also provide a fertile ground for then insecurity. The moment people are insecure, they feel that they are helpless under a democratic government. The next thing is to look in the direction of the military for survival.
4 countries in the 15-member regional bloc, the Economic Community of West African States, are being ruled by the military. The governments of Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea and Niger have been overthrown by the military, with an attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau reported last year. The military blames the democratically elected governments for the problems in the country, including the prevalence of armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. But security experts say that is often not the case, because the challenges they cited for toppling civilian governments often remain.
The countries that have experienced military takeover, have they fared better? Are we going to say today that insurgents or terrorists are absent in Mali? Have they been able to contain the menace in Mali or in Burkina Faso or in Guinea? Have they been able to contain it as military leaders?
Analysts argue that if government leaders address the public's key concerns, then the armed forces may be discouraged from attempting takeovers.
If we are able to get ECOWAS, African Union and UN to promote democratic ideals, to ensure that there is no state capture or the capture of election management bodies and there are credible elections. And of course, we cannot also rule out the factor of international or external interference in the affairs of African countries. Once those are not there, there will be no basis for you to have military coup.
In the wake of the coups in Mali, Burkina Faso and Guinea, regional bloc ECOWAS has pressured the military to hand over power.
In the case of Niger, ECOWAS had threatened to send troops if constitutional order was not restored within a week, and also imposed economic sanctions. But despite the expiry of the ultimatum, the Niger military junta has remained defiant. They have also got support from Burkina Faso, Guinea and Mali. ECOWAS leaders are expected to meet later this week in Abuja to decide if the bloc will intervene militarily in Niger, as earlier announced. Ajak Mangut, CGTN, Abuja.
The Prime Minister of Timor-Leste said that the country would reconsider joining ASEAN if the bloc is unable to solve the conflict in Myanmar. And Isabela Guzman has the details.
Timor-Leste has been waiting for more than a decade to be on the official member of ASEAN since its initial application in 2011. Despite the long wait, the small island nation hinted it could further delay its membership, depending on how the bloc will resolve the ongoing tensions in Myanmar. Timor-Leste Prime Minister Xanana Guzman boldly claimed last week it could not accept military junta regimes anywhere and could not ignore human rights violations in Myanmar as the island nation has adopted democracy. Xanana said that the ASEAN's inability to sit together to end the conflict in Myanmar would mean that Timor-Leste cannot trust ASEAN. In April 2021, ASEAN and Myanmar's junta agreed on a peace initiative for Myanmar, but its implementation has been stagnant due to a lack of commitment from the junta. In late 2022, the 10-country bloc finally agreed in principle to admit Timor-Leste as the group's 11th member. Meanwhile, Timor-Leste President Jose Ramos Horta believes his country could become a full-fledged ASEAN member by 2025. Experts have interpreted his latest statement as an indication that Timor-Leste is actually still evaluating its decision to join the ASEAN, which may have also affected how the 10 members view Timor-Leste's applications. Di siya nanisa di Guzman, arahangan siya kontep mahanakon, SMNI News, Pratetay, Sawadika. Australia has introduced the government's new position on Israeli settlements in the West Bank by deciding to reinstate the term Occupied Palestine Territories. David Suarez has the details.
Australian Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong vowed to strengthen settlements in the West Bank by affirming that they are legal under international peace. Wong told the parliament that to revive Palestinian territories, Australia would be bringing itself in line with the term employed by multiple other countries. The term will be used to territories in the West Bank and Gaza that Israel occupied in 1967. The Australian foreign minister said that while Israel is a committed friend of Canada, it was important to adjust the language used concerning settlements. Officials have avoided using the terms occupied and occupations in 2014. The move comes as Palestine pressured Australia to recognize Palestinian statehood. Wong, however, said decisions on recognizing Palestinian statehood would be a matter for government. In October last year, Canberra reversed the decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, but made it clear the Australian embassy will stay in Tel Aviv. The Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council, or AIJAC, the premier organization for the Australian Jewish community, expresses disappointment over the federal government's decision by describing the move as counterproductive and one-sided. It added that the move will make it extremely difficult for Australia to present itself as a credible and effective advocate for a two-state peace. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Devi Suarez, SMNI News, Australia.
New Zealand's updated policy review marks a significant strengthening of its alignment with the U.S.-led military and intelligence buildup to war against China. Jillian Libert tells us more.
The Defense Policy Strategy Statement cited China's increased military investment and assertive stance in the Pacific region as a primary threat to New Zealand. Under the ongoing defense policy review, New Zealand's Defence Minister Andrew Little presented two policy documents to lawmakers, namely the Future Force Design Principles and a Defence Policy Strategy Statement, as well as a new national security strategy. Little said the policy review was aimed at strengthening New Zealand's military alliance with Australia and ties with the Five Eyes intelligence partners, which include the United States, Canada, the UK and Australia. The Defence Minister said New Zealand needs to be equipped and prepared for the possibility of playing a role should conflict break out. In other words, the focus of New Zealand's military spending is not on defending the country's territory, which has never to a foreign military attack, but rather on getting ready to fight someone else is nearly 9,000 kilometers away in a war between two of the world's biggest powers, the US and China. The defense strategy documents were after the US and Australia pressured New Zealand to drop their pretense of while its previous leaders were hesitant in antagonizing China. China takes roughly 30% of all New Zealand exports. $20 billion of New Zealand's exports flow through the South China Sea. The Future Force Design Report is New Zealand's first ever national security strategy paper. Reporting from New South Wales, this has been Gillian, SMNI News, Australia.
One of the four estranged sons of the King of Thailand made a surprise visit to his homeland after nearly 3 decades of living overseas. Chatmongkon Pasamaigasan reports.
For the first time in 27 years, Wacharare's son Wacharaewong finally set foot in Thailand. His unannounced return has surprised many and raised questions of a possible succession plan taking place. Wacharaewong, who works at a law firm in New York, made a low-key arrival at Suvarnabhumi Airport on Sunday. The 42-year-old lawyer visited the Foundation for Slum Child Care, which is supported by the royal family. His visit comes at a difficult time for the Thai royal family, as King Maha Vajiralongkorn's eldest daughter, Princess Pacharakitiyapha Naretira Thepyawadi, who is the most possible heir, remains in coma after she collapsed in December. The Royal Palace and the Household Bureau declined to provide any comment on his visit. Wacharaewong thanked the public for giving him a warm welcome despite being away for a long time, adding that it's like a dream come true for him to be home again. He is one of 5 children born to King Vajiralongkorn's second wife, Sucharini, a former actress whom he divorced in 1996 and has lived abroad since then after being accused of adultery. The king's 4 estranged sons are widely believed to have been stripped of their royal status and have no place in the line of succession to the throne. รายงานจากกรุงเทพมหานคร นายชัดมงคล วิสมัยโกศล SMNI News ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
The United States equities reportedly retreated recently and were dragged lower by bank stocks after rating agency Moody's reduced the credit rating of several small to medium-sized U.S. banks. Jin Domingo reports.
Reports citing the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.45% to 35,314.49. The Standard & Poor's 500 Composite 500 dropped 0.42% to 4,499.38. The Nasdaq, meanwhile, slipped 0.79% to 13,884.32. The decline follows after Moody's Investors Service, a rating agency, downgraded the credit ratings of 10 mid-sized U.S. lenders on Monday. Moody's also placed 6 major lenders on review for potential downgrades and changed its outlook to negative for 11 major banks in the U.S. To recall, Moody's warned that multiple factors are putting pressure on the U.S. banking sector, including funding risks, regulatory capital deficiencies, and rising risk related to commercial real estate. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Jean Domingo, SMNI News.
In the first half of 2023, China consumed nearly 555 tons of gold, up more than 16% year-on-year. The trend has been described as a domestic gold craze, but diamonds seem to have lost their attraction as the market size in China declined to $11.4 billion in 2022, $2.5 billion less than in 2021. Xu has more from the southern China city of Shenzhen, China's biggest distribution center for wholesale jewelry.
We are at Shenzhen's Shribei Jewelry Market, the largest wholesale market of its kind in China. The market has been crowded with consumers from all over the country for months as the international gold price continues to rise. Let's go and see what the best seller is here.
The hustle and bustle of the Shribei Jewelry Market since the beginning of 2023 marked a strong comeback from last year. With attractive designs, diverse styles and low prices, Dozens of deals can be reached in seconds.
Shuibei is well known for its gold sales. The quality of gold is more reassuring than other places.
We are about to get married. We prefer to buy some gold rather than diamonds for inheritance or for wearing.
China's domestic consumption of gold jewelry reached 555 tons in the first half of 2023. Among the gold consumption, the purchase of gold bars jumped 30% year-on-year to 146 tons, while that of gold jewelry reached 368 tons, up almost 15% from the same period last year.
In 2023, our gold sales increased by 20 to 30% compared with the last year.
By contrast, the doorways of neighboring diamond stores looked relatively lonely, as the precious gems lost some significant value over the last few months.
The retail transaction volume of diamond inlays is relatively low, and the wholesale sales of our diamond inlays is also declining.
The sales of diamond jewelry have declined slightly, partly due to falling prices, fewer marriages, the impact of cultivated diamonds, and changing buyer behavior.
For daily social needs, some consumers look to art jewelry as an alternative to diamond jewelry.
Our sales of art jewelry in the first half of this year have increased by about 300% over the whole of last year.
Some economists say the booming gold sales are a direct reflection of a gloomy economic outlook.
When people feel about uncertainty about the future, especially on the economy, especially about the income growth, people will think to change their investments platform from the variety of the financial products to hard currencies such as gold, such as real estate.
However, Wu says that the real estate market hasn't looked good since the beginning of the last year, so Chinese consumers and investors have been looking at other products. Wu added, proper stimulative policies are still needed to ensure a healthy market and economic rebound. Xu Hua, CGTN, Shenzhen, Guangdong Province.
China's Navy hospital ship arrived in Vanuatu for a week-long visit and a medical mission in the said country. The details from Birhil Parva.
Chinese Navy hospital ship called Peace Ark arrived at Port Vila in Vanuatu on Tuesday for its 7-day visit and medical mission. The said vessel is China's first hospital ship with a capacity of over 10,000 tons. Upon its arrival at Port Vila, Peace Ark received a ground welcoming ceremony at the dock. Vanuatu Prime Minister Ismael Calzaco, Chinese Ambassador to Vanuatu Li Mingang, and other embassy staff members, representatives of local residents, overseas Chinese, and Chinese-funded institutions, and the Chinese medical team to Vanuatu were present in the ceremony. And after the welcoming, all representatives boarded Peace Ark for a visit.
此次瓦努阿图之行，根据靠泊条件，我们将采取码头靠泊外加港内锚泊的方式开展医疗服务。锚泊期间，通过船载登陆艇转运患者前往主平台进行诊疗。同时，我们将派出多支分队前往当地医院、乡村、社区，让更多民众享受到中国军医的优质医疗服务，进一步加深两国人民的了解，促进中瓦友谊。
Peace Ark was commissioned in 2008, and since then it has carried out various humanitarian missions and has treated more than 180,000 patients across the globe. Reporting, this has been Virgil Parba, SMNI News.
In other news, SMNI News is a huge help for the continuous development of the Philippines, according to an award-giving body. Because of this, the TV network's significant contribution to nation building was once again recognized. Let's find out more about this with Jason Rubrico.
Because of SMNI News' significant contribution to the Philippines' development, the TV network was recognized as the Outstanding Media Network for Nation Building by the Philippines Golden Eagle Awards. Several well-known personalities and organizations from different sectors gathered at Okada, Manila on Wednesday night to receive recognition at the annual Philippines Golden Eagle Awards for their outstanding contributions in their respective fields. And one of the awardees is SMNI News, which the award-giving body hailed as the outstanding media network for nation building.
So ako kasi masugid na taga-subaybay ng programa ng SMNI, lalo na sa inyong news. Nakita ko talaga yung tapang ninyo. May programa kayo na talagang tinutulig sa inyo ang karahasan, lalo na sa mga, alam mo na, mga NPA, mga etc. Hindi kayo natatakot. Yan ang totoong merong pagmamahal sa bansa. Ano? Yun talaga may puso at hindi nababayaran. Yung tapang na sabihin kung ano ang tama para sa kabubuti ng ating bayan. Kaya naman, nararapat lang nabigyan ng award ang SMNI. Kulang pa ito kasi ang dami yung ginagawang mabuti sa lalo na sa mga Pilipino. Kaya SMNI, I love you very much. Pastor Apollo Kibuloy, congratulations po. At alam ko, patuloy, kahit ano mangyayari, patuloy niyo pong ipaglalaban ang ating bayan.
Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ has already said that SMNI is dedicated to nation building. According to Pastor Apollo, he will support the government in its programs and projects for the further development of the Philippines. Pastor Apollo also vowed that the SMNI will always stand up for the truth to end the terror brought by the communist terrorist group, the CPP-NDF, which has caused the disintegration of Filipino society. 2023 is not over yet, but SMNI News has already won nearly 30 awards from prestigious award-giving bodies. This is a proof that SMNI continues to soar high and remains steadfast in bringing truth that matters to the Filipinos, as mandated by Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy. For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SMNI News.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. The enemy can come in like flood, but the Lord God in heaven will raise a standard against the enemy. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit SMNINewsChannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For my God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Kristel Guangco. Thank you for watching Newsline World, and thank you to our beloved pastor, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, for the opportunity to be part of this program. May you continue to listen on SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news. For SMNI is your source of